Welcome back to the After Action Reset. I'm Steve Geiger. Tonight we're talking about something millions of people are dealing with right now without fully realizing it. Silent burnout. Not dramatic collapse, not emotional breakdowns, not somebody curled up in a corner unable to function. I'm talking about the kind of burnout that hides underneath productivity. The kind where people still go to work, pay bills, raise kids, show up, perform, smile, handle responsibilities, while internally their nervous system is running on fumes. And truth be told, that has become normal in modern society. That's the scary part. We've created a culture where people think, if I'm still functioning, I must be okay. No, functioning and healing are not the same thing. A machine can technically still operate while parts inside are overheating and breaking down. Human beings are no different. And one of the biggest lies modern culture tells people is, as long as you can keep producing, you're winning. That mentality is destroying people quietly, because eventually the nervous system starts collecting the bill. And by the time most people notice the damage, they're already exhausted emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. That's what silent burnout is. It's deterioration underneath functionality. And the reason this topic matters so much is because the people most vulnerable to it are usually the people society praises the most. The reliable people, the disciplined people, the providers, leaders, parents, cops, military, first responders, entrepreneurs, the people everybody depends on. Those people learn very quickly, keep moving no matter what. And to be fair, sometimes that mindset helps people survive hard environments. I get it. Combat, law enforcement, emergency response, high pressure careers, financial pressure, family pressure. Sometimes pushing through is necessary, temporarily. But temporary survival mode was never supposed to become somebody's permanent operating system. That's the shift nobody talks about. Eventually, people stop recovering. And when recovery disappears long enough, burnout stops feeling temporary and starts feeling like personality. People start saying things like, I'm just always tired. I'm just stressed. I'm just busy. I'm just irritated lately. No. Sometimes your nervous system is overloaded beyond what it can sustainably carry. Big difference. And what makes silent burnout dangerous is that externally, life can look stable. That's why people miss it. The mortgage still gets paid. The bills still get handled. The work still gets done. The responsibilities still get carried. Meanwhile, internally, the system never powers down. And eventually, people start adapting to stress as baseline reality. That's happening everywhere right now. You can see it culturally. People are exhausted, emotionally thin, irritable, overstimulated, disconnected, numb. And instead of addressing the root problem, modern culture keeps prescribing more stimulation, more caffeine, more scrolling, more distraction, more noise, more hustle, more productivity, more dopamine. Nobody ever stops long enough to ask, what happens when the nervous system never gets a chance to recover? That's the real issue, because eventually the body stops whispering and starts screaming. But most people miss the whispers. That's what silent burnout really is. The nervous system whispering for years before collapse becomes visible. And honestly, I think one of the biggest reasons people ignore burnout is because modern society rewards self-neglect. Think about that for a second. People get praised for working nonstop, never resting, always grinding, always producing, always sacrificing. But nobody gets praised for emotional regulation. Nobody gets praised for recovery. Nobody gets praised for protecting their nervous system. In fact, people almost feel guilty if they try to slow down, especially high performers. Especially men. A lot of men tie their entire identity to usefulness. As long as they're useful, they feel valuable. But usefulness is not the same thing as health. That's a hard lesson for a lot of people. because eventually the body starts forcing the conversation people avoided voluntarily. That's when sleep gets worse, patience disappears, alcohol increases, relationships change, motivation drops, joy disappears. Small stressors suddenly feel massive. And people think, what happened to me? Nothing happened overnight. That's the point I'm trying to get across. Burnout is cumulative. It's pressure plus time without recovery. And the nervous system keeps adapting until one day it can't anymore. That's why some people suddenly snap over tiny things. The dishes, traffic, a text message, a question, a loud noise, just one more responsibility. And people around them think, why are you reacting so strongly? Because the nervous system lost reserve. That's what overload does. Small stressors start feeling huge because the internal system has no remaining margin. That's physiology, not weakness. And this matters because a lot of good people are walking around right now believing they're failing morally, when really they're overloaded neurologically. That distinction changes everything. Now, obviously, accountability still matters. I talk about it a lot. You can't just blame every behavior on stress. But understanding the mechanism underneath burnout matters because otherwise people spend years attacking symptoms instead of root causes. And modern culture is obsessed with symptom management. People try to fix burnout with vacations, shopping, entertainment, dopamine hits, alcohol, drugs, distraction, motivational videos, temporary escapes. But if the nervous system itself never learns regulation, nothing actually changes long term. That's why some people can take a vacation and still feel exhausted. Because exhaustion isn't always physical. Sometimes it's nervous system depletion. Huge difference there. I think one of the biggest problems in the mental health world right now is that people overcomplicate simple truths. Human beings were not designed for endless activation. That's it. We understand this with literally everything else in the world. Cars need maintenance. Weapon systems need maintenance. Athletes need recovery. Engines need cooling off periods. But somehow people think my brain and body should just endure endless pressure forever. No system works like that. Not biologically, not physiologically, not emotionally. And eventually the system starts compensating in unhealthy ways. That's where numbness, withdrawal, irritability, overthinking, sleep issues, anxiety, and emotional shutdown start appearing. And that's what's scary, is that this is the new normal. This is what normal is considered nowadays. There are people listening to this right now who haven't truly relaxed in years. Someone the other day on one of my social media posts literally posted, they have not felt relaxed in 6 years since their honeymoon, they said. That's insane. Their nervous system has been in constant anticipation mode for so long, they forgot what calm even feels like. Listen up. That is not normal. Common? Yes, and it's unfortunate. Is it normal? Absolutely no. And a lot of people hide it incredibly well. I know I did. That's the silent part that I'm talking about. Some of the most burned out people you'll ever meet still look disciplined externally. They're still productive, still composed, still successful. Meanwhile, internally, their nervous system sounds like a smoke detector with a dying battery. Everything becomes irritating. And because they're still functioning, they convince themselves, I'm fine. And we all remember what fine stands for. Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. But eventually the cracks start to show somewhere. Usually relationships feel it first. Families feel nervous system overload before the individual even fully admits it. Kids will feel it. Spouses will feel it. The emotional atmosphere around somebody changes. We've seen it. They become less patient, less emotionally available, more distant, more reactive, more numb. And people around them don't always understand why. Because burnout is invisible until it isn't. And honestly, this conversation is especially important for high-performing men because men were trained to suppress stress instead of process it. Stay composed, handle it, keep moving, don't complain. Again, those traits can create resilience temporarily, but suppression is not recovery. Remember that. And eventually, suppressed pressure accumulates somewhere. It has to. That's why so many men suddenly hit walls emotionally in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s. The system finally runs out of room to compensate. And then suddenly, anger increases, motivation drops, alcohol increases, relationships deteriorate, purpose disappears. And people think, oh my gosh, it happened suddenly. No, it didn't. The nervous system was sending signals for years. Most people ignore those signals because externally they still looked functional. That's why awareness matters. And I talk about awareness a lot. You have to recognize overload before collapse. That's where control starts. One thing psychologists like Carl Jung and Viktor Frankl understood deeply is that human beings begin deteriorating psychologically when life becomes nothing but survival, stimulation, and endless reaction without meaning, reflection, or recovery. There's truth in that. Exhausted people don't think clearly. Overstimulated people don't reflect deeply. Burned out people become reactive instead of intentional. And modern life is engineered for constant stimulation. Phones, notifications, news cycles, social media outrage, endless consumption. People never sit quietly anymore. And when they finally do, they realize how exhausted they actually are. I want you to conduct a little experiment. The next time you go to any place where you have to sit for, let's just say, up to 5 minutes, you're waiting to be called upon. Maybe the DMV, a restaurant, you're on the wait list. Anywhere where you have to stand in line and just wait, take a look around you. Take a look at how many people are overstimulated, constantly head down in their phone, as opposed to just no earbuds in, no phone, no stimulation, just being aware of your surroundings, taking it in, breathing. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? Give it a shot. I'm going to almost guarantee you, almost 100% of most people nowadays are constantly being stimulated. We are exhausted. The human population is exhausted. That's oftentimes why stillness feels uncomfortable for so many people. Their nervous system got addicted to activation. Silence suddenly feels foreign. And if you've lived in survival mode long enough, peace can actually feel unsafe at first. That sounds strange until you experience it. Some people literally do not know how to function without stress. Their system adapted to chaos so thoroughly that calmness feels abnormal. That's how deep burnout can go. And again, none of this means people are weak. It means biology has limits, and that's the reality. One thing I want people to understand tonight is this. Burnout does not mean you're broken forever. It doesn't even mean you're broken. We have to understand that. That's an important distinction. The nervous system is adaptable in both directions. It can learn overload and it can learn regulation. That's the neuroplasticity, right? We can weave in those new pathways throughout our brain to teach us how to regulate. But regulation requires consistency. That's the part nobody wants to hear. People want dramatic breakthroughs. They want one speech, one realization, that aha moment, one weekend reset or a weekend retreat or a small vacation. That's not usually how recovery works. Recovery is repetitive. Sleep, huge on the list. Hydration, movement, sunlight, boundaries, breath work, reducing overstimulation, human connection. That means trying to get out of that isolation phase or that numbness that we feel oftentimes, right? We crave as a species human connection. And then, of course, structure. By all accounts, a lot of these things are considered boring, are they not? That's why I said in the last episode, you don't see many movies about hydration or breath work or grounding. It just doesn't happen. But boring things regulate the nervous system. I believe half the internet would probably heal faster if people slept 8 hours, stopped doom scrolling until midnight, and drank water occasionally. That's not minimizing trauma. I get it. Trauma is real. PTSD is real. Stress is real. But overloaded nervous systems still respond to regulation over time. That's biology. And I think another important point here is that a lot of people don't need more motivation. They need stability. Modern culture worships intensity, but healing usually happens through consistency. And consistency is hard because burnout destroys emotional margin. You see how we connect the dots? We're slowly building each rung of the ladder here. That's why each episode builds on the previous one. Okay, we're connecting the dots. That's why small things start feeling impossible. And people shame themselves for it. They think, why can't I handle life anymore? Meanwhile, their nervous system has been overloaded for 6 straight years without meaningful recovery. That matters. One of the healthiest things a person can do is finally admit, okay, maybe my system has been running too hot for too long. Not with shame, not with self-hatred, just honesty. That's where recovery begins. Awareness. And that's the mission of the After Action Reset. Not fake positivity, not motivational nonsense, not pretending life is easy, because it's not always going to be. Real conversations about stress, burnout, nervous system overload, recovery, discipline, trauma, emotional health, and rebuilding control. Because there are millions of people silently carrying unbelievable pressure right now while pretending they're okay or they're fine. And most of them think they're alone. Let me be the first to tell you, you're not alone. That's why these conversations matter. If this episode hit home for you, don't just listen to it and move on. Actually pay attention to what your nervous system has been trying to tell you. Because the goal is not surviving until collapse. The goal is learning how to reset before the crash ever happens. That's real strength. Not endless self-destruction disguised as discipline. Real discipline includes recovery. Real control includes regulation. And real resilience comes from learning how to carry responsibility without losing yourself in the process. That's the reset. One honest moment at a time. One better habit at a time. One breath at a time. And one day, eventually, you look back and realize you're no longer surviving life. You're finally living it again. If this conversation helped you, make sure you subscribe to the After Action Reset on YouTube for my full long-form episodes every week. You can also choose to follow me over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you prefer audio during work, workouts, commuting, or late nights when your mind won't slow down. And follow my TikTok and Instagram pages because I try to post daily clips about the nervous system, insights, recovery tools, real conversations designed to help people recognize these patterns before they crash. Again, you are not alone in this, and you are not broken beyond repair. This is the After Action Reset, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.